Well, thank you for the introduction. As Wendy said, we have Tony Piazza from our WPCA and Kevin Clemens from our Highway Department. Adam Kessler, our Deputy Town Engineer, had a family obligation today and couldn't make it, as well as Matt Hopkins couldn't make it today from our Buildings and Grounds group. We are looking at just under a $5 million total budget, excluding the WPCA. Overall, that represents an increase of just under 5%. And in a minute, we'll get into some of the budget drivers. A couple of key things that you see here that are somewhat different than some of the other groups that are going to be presenting today. Public Works is not a group that's working only on its own projects. We are really here to support everybody else in town, whether it's through things like we've talked about utilities. We do the utility purchasing, we do the fuel programs. Our Buildings and Grounds division supports the library, we support social services, we support the police department and maintenance of their vehicles. Really, we're involved in all of the other groups as a support structure. Unlike Tom, we're not necessarily in the smiles business. Sometimes what I've said is, when we do our job well, you don't know that we did anything at all. When we don't do our job well, when you hit a pothole, when the stop sign is missing at the end of the street, when a meeting isn't set up, or where the temperature is not right. So.
We're in the frown prevention business.
Mailbox repair.
Oh, you had to go there. You had to go there early. The WPCA, I tell you, you talk about somebody who does a lot of work for the town that doesn't get any good recognition. The folks at the WPCA, their main function each and every day is to protect the Farmington River. It's an asset to our town. It's a treasure to the region. And it's important to know that they don't make anything at the WPCA. They clean up what we all send them each and every day. The water that's sent out into the Farmington River from the WPCA, and I cannot stress this enough, is cleaner than the Farmington River itself. It's dirty business, but Tony does it well. A couple of budget highlights. We're looking at just under $75,000 increase in full-time salaries. You can see the breakdown there. Our minimum wage impact is a little bit smaller. We actually have been having a hard time finding enough summer helpers. We usually bring on one for our Buildings and Grounds group, one for our WPCA, and we'd like to get 4 for the Highway Department. We've generally had great luck when we're able to get good Simsbury kids to come in and be the summer helper. We find that they really do well and thrive in that environment where they're building something. We found that these kids who maybe don't get outside and do enough construction every day actually work so well right alongside our guys. A lot of times we'll send them to flagger certification. They help and they take that responsibility well. And hopefully this year we'll be doing a little bit better on our recruiting process. Okay. We're going to jump, I guess, right into the CNR projects, and there's quite a few. Can't get much more exciting than material recycling. Every day throughout the summer, when Kevin's crews go out and dig and excavate in preparation of construction work, they bring back spoils, which is the pile on the left. Old catch basin top, asphalt, pipe, everything that they dug up. And that pile gets bigger and bigger every year. About every 3 to 5 years, we bring in a crusher. They take all of that material that was dug out of the ground, and they crush it down into 3-inch or smaller pieces that then becomes the backfill that we use after we've dug in the holes. So it is truly the circle of life for this granular material, which saves us tens of thousands of dollars each and every year. This fill material also is shared amongst other town departments. The Parks Department has used it quite a bit. It may be something, as we were talking about the cart paths, it may have a value there as a sub-base material as well. The other thing that it does is, if we did not do this, all of that fill material, and these are enormous piles, would have to get dumped somewhere. And I don't believe that would be environmentally sensitive. You end up with spoil piles that don't have a value to the community. This is a tricky and interesting one with everything going on at the community farm. Maria had suggested that we kind of carry $5,000 per year just for annual maintenance. I don't know, with everything going on at the farm, how that's going to be utilized this year. There is certainly a number of repairs that need to take place up there, and with the community farm looking to vacate, we certainly, the list of cleanup work is probably a little bit bigger than the $5,000, but this is at least getting us in the right direction. Our sidewalk program has been enormously successful. This program started, I think, somewhere in the slide 6 years ago or so, and I'm sorry, wrong project. This is the north end sidewalk. This is new sidewalk. I'm sorry. This is from essentially Antonio's up to the DOT lot. This is part of a lot zip project, and this is just an additional $38,000 for the town contribution that's going to this $1.7 million project. You can see the sidewalk there. There's a little rendering right in front of Antonio's of what it's going to look like. That project will be starting this spring. We have a contractor on board, and in addition to the sidewalk, we're also going to be adding a couple of decorative streetlights and really kind of making the north end a more welcoming and appropriate place for town. Okay. In anticipation of potential grants that are coming this year, we've put in this $112,000 CNR project for vehicle charging stations. We've targeted potentially the library, Rotary Park, Simsbury Farms, and Eno as good candidates for where these stations could go. And essentially, this is just being forward-looking to say, we're going to see grants this year. We want to be in a position to apply for those grants, avoid supplemental appropriations, because, again, with everything going on at the state and national level, this is a good direction to go.
So with that, though, what's the annual operating charge for the electricity we're giving away?
What I would tell you is I think there's a policy decision, but it's not my decision to be made, but should we be giving away electricity for free or should we be charging? And I personally think that it's something that needs to be holistic across the town. I know there's a lot of great apps out there now that people can pay. You can set this up that you can have it during business hours to be free. After hours, it would be pay. You can have it that after hours, it would shut off if you don't want it as a security concern, people going into your facilities. I know that some places have it set that employees are free. A lot of discussion, not necessarily for today, but I think it would be great from my end to see a holistic policy as opposed to facility by facility.
So, I mean, candidly, I think we have to have it today because I'm not comfortable approving 112 without knowing who's paying for it.
Okay.
So I think that's something we got to figure out, and I would love to know what the cost and usage is out here as kind of a baseline for that.
I don't have that number today. I know we've been tracking it over the last couple of months, just to make sure that we know. One of the things that comes into play is those are somewhat slower chargers than some of the new ones.
Okay.
And we, I believe, are looking at level 2 chargers, where the rapid chargers are just orders of magnitude more expensive and may not come into play with what are we trying to do with this type of infrastructure. Are we trying to make Simsbury a welcoming place for our residents, a place that if you go to Simsbury Farms, you're going to get a little bonus by getting some free electricity, versus a rapid charger where now we're going to be attracting people from other communities coming in, spending 20 minutes getting a week's worth of electricity and not necessarily getting out of the car and using our facilities or using our local restaurants.
Yeah,
I
that's
love the one here because oftentimes you will see people park here and walk across to the plaza, get some Starbucks, go to the post office, what have you. And I know when we put that one in, I wasn't sure it was going to get use. And the other day I came in and both were being used. So that's the first step.
I agree, but we also have folks that park there overnight too, right? So
I haven't seen too many overnight, but I know that we have
there's a
people
fair
there
amount of Teslas that
regularly.
show up there at the end of the day and are still there the next morning, so.
But one quick thing though, on the ask, you're only asking us to put up 22 for, the rest is gonna grant expectation. You're
That's
not
correct.
asking us for 112.
Right.
Okay.
But we still gotta pay for the electricity, right? Which the
Yeah, well, that's
distribution cost has doubled.
I
that
think it would
conversation is
just be helpful
valid.
to know like what that order of magnitude is per charger, if possible.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if it's $5,000 a charger, that's a very different story than if it's $500 a charger, right?
Yeah, I don't think we should give it away. We don't.
Okay. I might be able to get you that by the end of the day.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Crosswalk safety improvements. Specifically, we are looking at $46,680 for putting rapid flashing rectangular beacons on West Street. It's interesting that it's a state road. The DOT is not going to put these up. DOT would allow us to put these up.
They will.
This is the Mill Commons crossing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we've I'm sorry, so we've moved past the fact that we couldn't do this and we can push it on our own. I thought there was
The
more
state's not,
bureaucracy.
the state's not gonna pay for it, but we can.
Exactly right.
The state doesn't have a problem with us putting it up.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the state feels this doesn't meet the appropriate warrants to require it. but at the same time, they're not going to tell the town that we cannot put these up. It's a fairly high cost for these because we may have to get a full survey, and DOT unfortunately is going to require essentially a full set of engineering documents for these
Right.
rectangular flashing beacons.
I noticed in the savings at the end of the book, Maria put together, we did get a grant in 2020 for $170,000 for safety crossings.
That's correct.
So, if we have to potentially spend a little, we are kind of ahead of the game, right?
Yeah, and I also think the challenge with this is making sure that the more of these we put out, the more requests we're probably going to get. And I think we need to make sure that we're looking holistically
Yeah.
at where these make the most sense for safety as opposed to who asked first or
Well, are these the top, and are these the top two needs, in this, or did we move things around in the list of crossings?
we had not previously, prior to the outcry for this area, had not necessarily identified this as a
Identified it.
concern.
Right, so,
When we put out the other ones, our primary concern was where the East Coast Green, where the bike path crossed other roads. Interestingly enough, we chose to put the ones up at those crossings where you press the button. There are other communities that have them where they have proximity sensors, so as you ride your bike up, they turn on.
Oh, neat.
We did that very deliberately, that we wanted cyclists to stop and press the button. We had some cyclists that
Yeah.
weren't happy with me for that. But again, stopping before you cross a busy road, again, the purpose of these is safety, not
Seems like a good idea.
convenience.
Yeah.
How many crosswalks do we have in town in total that are excluding the ones that you've already put the
You
stop?
mean, how many other crosswalks do we have in total? Oh, I used to have that number. It's somewhere up around 60. Is that right, Kevin?
Oh, wow.
And every
Yeah.
year
Never
we have
would
to,
imagined
we end
that.
up repainting those. Every crosswalk has a dollar value cost. So certainly when we get a request for a sidewalk, we work with the police, but we try to make sure that it makes sense, because again, it's every year you're repainting. There's 4 signs for every crosswalk.
I know crosswalks that are often mentioned are the one, the on Hot Meadow down by Fitzgerald's and First Church and the library, and then also where there were just 2 recent accidents in front of the post office and Town Hall. Now, because that's Hot Meadow Street and that's also a state road, is the state, because they're amenable to having this kind of crosswalk on West Street, doesn't mean they're going to approve that for Hot Meadow.
That's correct. And one of the things that we're doing is we're going to be reconfiguring the town hall parking lot this coming year. So it's going to hopefully eliminate the number of people crossing at the post office, push you more to the main crosswalk. The challenge also that we have is lighting, the time of day that people tend to cross there. And the driveways make it very confusing, where you'll have cars coming from the north, and they see a car stop, they assume that the car is turning left into the post office, when instead they're stopped waiting for
Right.
somebody walking back from Starbucks.
Right.
And I can tell you, I myself probably had one of my closest calls that was right there, and it was just that. The car stopped, and a car went around at about 20
Right.
miles an hour, thinking that they were looking to make the turn.
Right.
I had
Right.
just done the wave to the thank you for the person here, and
And you're saying that's eliminated,
happens all
that's
the time.
lessened with optics, with the optical recognition, sort of.
what we're doing is we're changing the driveway configuration there to help lessen that bit of confusion. The other thing that was talked about was adding an additional street light in this area here to help, because some of the accidents have occurred at night. We had one of our custodians a few years ago was hit by a car there. So it's,
But do we know have we asked if the state would approve this type of
Yes.
crosswalk there? And they said no, or?
they certainly will not fund it. Their push was that with all the crosswalks in this section, it almost becomes confusing. There's too many
Right.
crosswalks, so they're pushing us.
Between the crosswalks and the stoplights, probably.
Yeah, exactly. You end up with so much noise as a driver.
Yeah.
So is that part of the, what if you negotiate, it's a negotiation, you got 2 here within 100 yards of each other.
So the goal is to eliminate one of these.
One of those, so you go to the state and say, we're negotiate, we're gonna go from 2 to 1, and it's gonna be a more intensive crossing
I
optically.
love to negotiate. There's no such thing as negotiating with the state.
Okay,
They are.
So go to Wendy's point, we got 100 and how much, so now we're down, what's that fund down to now? This will be our first expenditure from that fund, right?
No. I
It's
don't.
not, oh, okay.
That was a grant from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, no, I was referring to savings we've had, so we, just to make it more palatable to potentially
Okay.
swallow this now.
Yeah, we did.
crosswalks.
Whoa.
How many have lights? Or the light ones?
7.
Oh, okay. Well, that was,
Wow.
crosswalks
While we're
are.
on the tangent, just informational, is the one by Agway, is it, I know it's not yours, but is it
Oh, yeah.
done in its most complete form?
I believe it is done in its most complete form. There was
Seems
a,
to have actually less safety to it than it did when they tore it out.
There was a significant misstep on that one. That 15 years ago, we were probably the first. That was probably the first crossing of its kind where it had in pavement
Yeah.
flashing lights.
Very effective.
Very effective.
Incredibly
You would
effective.
press that button and cars would come to a skidding stop. It was great. The state puts down salt in the wintertime, and the salt finds its way into those buried electrical conduits, and over time, those stopped working, and the state made the decision to upgrade the signal. We'd actually identified that as a crossing a few years ago under our grant that we were going to do. Kind of funny, we were going to do that, and as soon as they heard we were going to do this, hey, great idea, we'll do it. So, okay. So we let them upgrade that, but they made a complete misstep, and they didn't take out the lights in the pavement that I believe are no longer functioning.
Great. So people think it's broken.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct. Okay. We're looking at $150,000 to do pollinator, a full refresh of all of the Iron Horse Boulevard median island plantings. The plantings that are down there, I think, were from when Iron Horse was first constructed. They're dated. We have some invasive species in there. Those trees, every year somebody calls to tell me they're dead. They bloom for about, I think, a week at best. They're called shadblows. They're not the most attractive trees even when they bloom for that week. And this would just go in line with the pollinator pathway program that we've been looking at as a town. And the theory would be that we would work with the pollinators and a design professional and a landscape contractor to get it started, and then we could work potentially using more volunteers to maintain it going forward.
Since this one's near and dear to my heart, can I say something quickly on this?
Sure.
So we're going to be using pollinators, but I don't see, this is not like, to me, a pollinator initiative. It is about reducing the cost of maintaining something that's kind of ugly and costly today and using appropriate plants. And I just don't want my colleagues up here to think that this is $150,000 we're spending on pollinators. It's really a long-term upgrade to this whole strip.
And I'd also say, before I worked in Simsbury, the thing that brought me here more than anything else was the Performing Arts Center. I mean, that's really what outsiders see of Simsbury. And I think, with all of the activities that go down there and the road races and everything else, having those islands, in an appropriate condition, a condition that represents Simsbury, is very important.
What's there, I can't picture what's there now.
Nothing.
It's just empty?
Well,
lilies and grass.
there's fencing on both
Hostas.
sides
Yeah.
of the median
In
is
the middle?
fencing.
We're talking about the
Yes.
middle island, right, where you have to cross.
And then it
Okay.
has grass, but it's like dirt grass. It's a dirt, you can't mow, it just looks horrible.
So what's the contractor
Okay.
cost? $25K a year for the Iron Horse mowing and everything else, maintenance?
Sounds about right.
So is that getting cut, or do we still have to pay the same, even though there's now going to be less work?
It would probably be something we would rebid, and it would have potential to be reduced, yeah.
All right.
They mulch every couple of years, and we have that in there. It's one of the few sections that we pay somebody to mow that area.
Yeah, because to Eric's point, if we're going to lower the operating cost there, now I'm interested, right? But if we're going to still pay 25,000 plus put 150, that's a different investment.
Yeah, and I think as we go through this, the key is low-maintenance plantings, not just pollinators, but low-maintenance plantings. We are not looking to put irrigation in there. We are looking to have,
Understood. But again, if the maintenance cost doesn't come down from what we're paying, then, we're not maintaining them necessarily today then, right? So we just got to look at that. What's the economics of it?
yeah, I would say it may come down. It's not going to come down a ton, quite honestly, because again, they're still sending out a crew to mow. They're still sending out a crew to do the annual fall and spring cleanups.
So you're gonna take away seating for people at the PAC who like sitting there?
The poachers.
Free shows?
There will still probably be some islands that will probably have some level of grass, just because, how many plants, but I know that would certainly help certain people who are concerned about the squatters. I think was the word they had. Again, we're looking at a steep grant. We received $160,000. We were looking at $40,000 for the town match, and this is just to receive the total project appropriation of $200,000 to make Station Street from one-way into a two-way street. The businesses in that area certainly feel that residents and visitors have a hard time finding their businesses. Once in a while, for anybody who spends a lot of time at Eno, there are many people who've decided that they are safe navigating this as a two-way street now. It's a challenge for those businesses, and it's a relatively small project when you look at the fact that we have the $160,000 steep grant. This is also going to coincide with doing the parking lot at Eno and redoing that sidewalk to the right. A couple years ago, we did the sidewalk that's shown on the left, and knowing that this was a potential, we did not do the sidewalk on the right.
So there is an advantage to Eno, and people going to Eno by doing this, correct?
I would say so. You're going to be able to turn down from Hop Meadow. So,
Right.
Yeah. If you're coming from the south and you're hoping to get a spot in front of Eno, and everybody's at the coffee
Yeah.
spot taking your spot, you'll be able to take a
Can
quick
take a
right down there.
Instead of going around the loop.
There may be some impacts to on-street parking in that area, but talking to the owner of Weldon's Hardware, they're comfortable with it. They feel this will overall be a benefit to their business, so.
Okay.
Metacom Drive, I think we've talked about this one a few times. For those of you who are familiar with it, it has the steep rock cut as you go up the hill. Every year, we have some level of rockfall. It's natural. We went out a couple years ago with an engineering geologist and really spent a full day investigating the quality of that rock and what's going on. And there are very, very weak layers of, we call it sandstone, mixed in there. Those weak layers absorb water and then during freeze-thaw cycles pop the rock out, and you have rock falls like the one that you see here. That rock face is actually owned by the residents who live on top of it. At the same time, very few residents anywhere own a rock face that affects a town roadway. So what we are looking to do is a very modest safety improvement where we're looking to put heavy timber rails similar to what we have on Iron Horse Boulevard along the base of the rocks. We're looking to remove a couple of trees from the top because if they fall, they're going to pull down a substantial amount of rock, and some additional signage. So in the event that we have a rock fall similar to what you've seen there, we're minimizing the likelihood that it's going to make it to the road or that it's going to impact anybody walking. It's going to make it so that you cannot walk right along the bottom of that rock face.
So just,
Is it customary for taxpayers to pay for that when it's on private property?
The work we would be doing, other than the tree work, would be somewhat customary, it'd be similar to guardrail. But no, we could certainly argue that, this is owned by that neighborhood and it's their responsibility.
I'm not suggesting that, I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
What if you,
I was thinking that too, like a HOA, they have to do their maintenance internally, so,
we didn't replace the sewers of the.
yeah, Pine Hill.
Right.
Okay, so the kind of, this is, our friend Lisa, it's the same scenario. The guardrail we were putting something in that didn't exist before, $46,000, wood, it's gonna rot. Then it's gonna be $46,000 today, it's gonna be $86,000 when we have to replace it. Okay, so that's whatever board has to appropriate that. What if we did one of those projects like this is an idea, the project that they did for the bike path where they dragged the tires up and down the face of it to preventively loosen all the loose stone and knock it down now.
Here's the problem with that. How loose is loose? Because one of the things that was thrown out as an option from this engineering geologist is you can do that. You can go out there either with the tires, you can go out there with the machine and scrape it. But unless you get up there and put hands on, is there that one rock that's right about to fall? In other words, how loose have you gotten it? And even once you do that, and that's going to be still a very expensive project, how many weeks, months, years are you going to have before the next rock loosens up?
I get that, but this is seemingly falling now from 40 years of naturally weathering. And
Yep.
So now, if you take away a certain amount of vulnerable rock,
Yep.
then you're probably gonna get at least another 40 years of the natural. It's just a way of looking at it versus sinking in a cost that will have to be carried continuously forward.
Honestly.
That is not, as on us, it's not that neighborhood.
Yeah, we looked at, and literally the recommendation was to send people up there in the bosun's chairs. Literally, sitting in a chair, hand by hand picking is the ideal way to do it.
Is there a way to use, I mean, having lived in Colorado, I've seen lots of, people that have vacationed there, gone to the mountains, they use like netting.
Yeah, they screen it.
Right. So is that not an option there?
It's an option, but it's far more expensive.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah.
Long term, I'm just thinking long term.
To be honest, that's almost the best solution because you're going to have an appropriate level of safety. It's managing where
Right.
the rocks fall. Aesthetically, I'm sure that you'll get a little pushback. Originally, when it was put in, that netting as part of the subdivision was discussed,
Right.
and at the last minute, it was not included in the subdivision.
And I understand that, the discussion around it being on, it's this housing development, but, I mean, since we are here discussing this, I mean, we are discussing a known public safety issue also, so I think we need to take that into consideration as well, that if there is some kind of accident, what responsibility do we have that we have known about this and,
So for conversation, the green, you can see the lawn area,
Yeah.
that's basically the limits of the town right away.
Yeah.
So once we start to touch the rock, that is in fact the homeowner's property up on
Right.
top. If you look at on the GIS, the mapping shows it clear. So when that subdivision was cut in and was blasted and such, it was just to the town right away. That's exactly what it is. So to Tom's point, this is really just a safety, to protect the town's best interest. The work that we would be doing with the guardrail is within our right of way. Whether it's timbers, I don't just, whether that's the best one or a less aesthetic would be a metal beam that would have longer, more longevity, but
and the idea is the guardrail would prevent the rock from going into the roadway, right?
this is 2 or 3 times a year.
Yep, smart.
This one's a little more excessive than most, but things like this, it wasn't too long ago, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, that we were up there with a little loader and handwork and doing that, so.
It's two things. It's going to keep the rocks from going into the road, or at least the bigger rocks, and it's going to keep people from walking there.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
right.
It really was intended to be the lowest cost, basic safety improvement we could do.
Right.
Yeah.
And even with that, there is still potential. There's 1 or 2 areas where there's potential that a bigger section could slide at some point. But as much as that's a risk, every time we drive down our roads in our beautifully forested town, there are trees that could
Right,
fall. And
right, right.
It's like all things, it's a balance.
But the difference is that is something that hasn't happened or is not recurring, whereas this is a known issue.
And there is no ownership, there's no home ownership organization for that.
There's not necessarily actually, forgive me, I do believe they do have some sort of
Road association?
association, because that's what pays for some of the landscaping and maintenance of the grass areas. The wall or the rock face is owned by, I believe, 3 of the
I
homeowners.
recognize that, but it is collectively a safety issue for all the residents if they drive through there, even though it's owned by 3 of the residents.
Yep.
I don't know, it's just the it's just the thought of, it's like, you live there and you need to, it's like me not having sewers,
Right.
I'm forced to have septic, because I just made a decision so.
We can help you with that, but
Yeah,
But when we put in sewers, don't we assess the users back?
we do.
Right.
If the residents of Chris's Street wanted sanitary sewers a few years ago, they could have all voted to have sanitary sewers, and the cost would have been assessed to them.
Right.
So yeah, there is a level of policy discussion on this one. All of the other ideas were well north of $150,000. This, again, was brought about as a basic measure to provide a level of safety to people using the public roadway. This is kind of an interesting one, but we have GPS in all of our large plow trucks. The GPS system we have has become antiquated, it's dated, and it does not provide real-time data, which is now the standard within the industry. There's a lot of actually pretty neat public apps from, I think Ohio DOT has one. You can watch every plow truck in Ohio during a snow event. What we're looking to do is upgrade our system for $45,000 for our heavy plow trucks. And with that, for just a minimal increase, it's also going to include a dash cam, which provides a huge benefit to us in the event that there's an accident, that there's a problem, that there's damage. And really, this is becoming the industry standard at this point for what we're doing.
How do you use the GPS data operationally?
Right now, the way we use it more often than not is when we get a complaint that the truck either wasn't where it was supposed to be, or more often is, the plow truck was going 60 miles an hour down my road. On a good day, the trucks can't go 60 miles an hour, so quickly we look in there, and more often than not, we're finding out that the truck was doing, 13 miles an hour, 14 miles an hour.
Got it.
The GPS we have now is tied into our ground speed system for salt dispensing, and the system's designed to put salt down, but it has a little feature for GPS. It just doesn't really work. You have to segment it. It's like you either can have it every half a minute, every 10 seconds. A vehicle at 10 miles an hour can travel a lot of distance. You wouldn't know what we were doing at your house. It just is not accurate. It's not designed exactly for what we're looking for. This isn't to police the drivers. It's really to protect them.
Yeah.
They say that the trucks are doing 30 miles an hour, they're doing 12. Every time that I bought into our system, it was doing 8 miles an hour, or 12 miles an hour, or really 20 is what it's designed, the plowing should be done at, so.
Kevin, don't forget, we have half the group here is pro plow drivers. We fixed it.
No, you guys are great, but it's a common complaint after this.
I had a resident walk up to me in the gym the other day, complimented Highway about how quickly they responded to their mailbox request.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
just to counter your negative.
I love you guys too.
As much as we joke about, we're not in the smiles business, but it is not for lack of effort in terms of what we've tried to do with resident service and responsiveness. It's no lack of effort. It's just, unfortunately, we're in a business where we're taking huge trucks and moving hundreds of pounds of snow every minute off the roadway.
Does this at all provide data to tie into your scheduling, your real-time scheduling system?
Not so much for that. The other place this is going to come into play is Kevin and myself now during a snow event, especially a big snow event, can be sitting there, and all of a sudden, if we see a truck sitting still for a few minutes, we can understand whether or not we have a reason for concern. Sometimes during an event, the truck driver's got to get out, something's wrong with the truck. You've all climbed up in the truck. It's not a pickup truck. It's up high. If they slip getting out and get hurt, they could be laying in a cul-de-sac and we won't know. This system is going to provide us a little bit more security to say, okay, why is truck 13 parked in an odd place for 10 minutes? Call them on the radio, they don't answer. Okay, now we're going to send somebody out to check on them.
Is there an opportunity to expand this program with the police department as well, or is that a different system, different needs?
Different system. In fact, last time they upgraded their dash cams, we tried grabbing their old ones, but
No, not the dash cams. I'm talking about the GPS and the whole movement sensors and stuff and all that stuff.
I'm not sure. You mean tying it in so they would watch it? I think we could open it, I believe once we have it, it's an
No, for
open
their
source.
for their own vehicles, right?
I don't know how they
You know,
would.
why did it take
I
this
won't-
officer so long while they were over here in Terriffill?
I'm
and,
not
you
going
know,
to speak for the police. We have Jenna here for that.
Just thinking if there's an opportunity to save money for doing it for both.
We just replaced our MDTs and our dash cams. I'm not sure what GPS system we use. I'm not familiar with that information.
Do you have an idea of the yearly subscription costs associated?
Yeah, the first year is going to be free, and then moving out, it's going to be about $4,000 a year.
Okay.
I'm surprised that this is, not that I'm looking to add costs, but I'm surprised that this kind of, and it's not Big Brother monitoring. I'm surprised it's not in almost every single vehicle that we own and operate, just to make sure that,
You're watching, weren't you?
We have that.
You're one of the 4 on TV, okay.
It works through our records management system, ARCAT.
Okay, so we already have that, all right.
For just that reason.
Perfect, yeah, again, it's not to be punitive to the officers, it's, hey, look, this is why it took us 3.2 minutes to get to your house, which, by the way, is a really good time, right? But it always feels really long.
So are you piggybacking on the chief's contract, or is it a whole
No.
different contract, different
Different.
provider, different?
It's basically cellular based, whether it's Verizon or one of these others, and it's, they have the most state-of-the-art packages.
Gotcha.
There's several different options we have to go through. Verizon is the carrier that the town uses, so we may be able to get the best value.
Tie it in there, okay.
Multi-use chip truck right now for our tree truck, what we've historically done is used an old plow truck. We put a big wooden box on the backs. The problem we're finding out is the reason it's an old plow truck is it's a truck that should have come out of service. These old trucks, when things go wrong, are extremely expensive, so we're looking to have a dedicated truck that would be used for, we'd call it our tree truck. It would be used for wood chips, mulch, and could also be used for leaf collection. Anticipated life 20, probably closer to 25 years. This is going to be a purchase that's going to have a dedicated year-round use of supporting that need, as opposed to trying to recoup and have a value of an old plow truck that just recently we've had a couple where, what was it going to be if we had to replace the exhaust system?
About $6,000 for the catalytic converter, so we taped it up. It's a Band-Aid on a vehicle. And you have to take into account that it's towing a 20,000-pound chipper. And it's, you know, the air brakes and everything else, it's using a dated truck for safety concerns, everything, it's run its course. You know, we dug one out from Parks and Rec that was sitting for a while, we used that for a while. The good thing about that one, it wasn't exposed to all the salt and everything else, it was an old truck. We got several years out of it. The trucks right now are just, it's a hard life for them. We get 11, 12 years out of them, and it's we're working hard.
Tom,
This one's important.
when I look at the item in the summary sheet, it says it's TAR, Town Aid Road, but in the item, it shows 200 as a grant? Is that just a typo?
I think that's just how it's being, it would be Town Aid Road.
Oh, okay, because the other one said Town Aid Road, that's why I was just curious.
And I also think this one, I think the number's a little high. I think we're going to be closer to 170 on this one.
Okay.
Rather have you, especially with tar, rather have you build it in high so we don't have to come back and do it again.
Yep.
Or if it gets stuck in Mexico for a year like the last trucks.
Looking to add an additional $50,000 to our drainage program. Last year in particular, we had some significant drainage costs. We had a drainage culvert failed at Terry's Plain, or at the bottom of Terry's Plain Road crossing East Weetog Street that was, how much was it? How much did we spend on that one?
It was about $33,000.
And then we also took advantage of the fact that Dino Nobel was paying Tony Piazza and the WPCA to replace all of the sewers that they used to own along Woodland Street. And so as we went through that project, it was clearly the time to upgrade the drainage. Woodland Street was just an old EB housing street. It was never truly engineered. So we spent a significant amount of our drainage money on Woodland Street so that it's now essentially a brand-new street. It has new sanitary sewers, new storm drain, new asphalt. And as much as it drained our normal allotment, it was definitely the time to do it as we saw the cost savings of not having to repave.
Is that the catch basin you did under Route 10 as well?
All of that, yep.
Over to the Benny side?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's a nice. you
Wait,
guys
no,
did-
not the Benny side was the DOT project.
That was the DOT project?
Yep.
Okay, so that's a different one.
Yeah, and their project was a little more expensive than ours.
Okay.
I think if you drive up Woodland right now, and if you had ever driven up it before, you
Yeah.
barely, it was
Oh, it's a different neighborhood. It's a different neighborhood
It's a real road
now.
right now, it's widening, and it's, you know, it's a two-lane road, a lot of it was single
Yeah.
lane traffic, it's,
And that whole thing is nice. Sidewalks are done, everything in conjunction with the Route 10 paving. No, that all came together nicely.
that's where we had a biannual $125,000 allotment, it went last year. You know, there's times where we get a bunch of $5,000 projects with it, we had a few heavy hitters. We also had it on Canal, at the bottom of Sand Hill and Canal, there was wing walls that were collapsed that right next to the trail, there's a telephone pole that had a lot of infrastructure up above it. Next time you go through, you'll see we repaired that. That was probably $18,000, which was cheap for what the project that was done, to be quite honest with you. So
And as part of that, we just actually went through and had an inventory of all of our cross culverts in town. So we're actually, again, proactively managing all of that infrastructure, really getting our arms around it, making sure that, we're not reacting to situations failing, but we're fixing things before they break. Whew, finally, Kevin, one that doesn't affect you. The Buildings and Grounds Division, we have things that are up high. You look at Eno, you look at even the engineering area up here. For years, we've kind of made do either with a scaffolding system, trying to use tall step ladders, or on occasion, we've actually borrowed the man lift from the high school. But we've put this in a couple years. It's definitely a real value where it would be a portable lift so that we can get up and fix the fan that's broken. We can fix the lights. If we are able to purchase this year, we will probably do the painting in the auditorium at Eno using our own forces rather than contracting it out. So again, it's to your point earlier, it's our ability to do work ourselves rather than contract it out. And in order to do that, we need the right tools. This is, for me, is a huge safety benefit. Every year we put up the American flag and bunting at Eno. If you've ever seen them do that, it would scare you. If you have the slightest fear of heights, you don't want to see how they do that. Now they would go out in this machine that's purpose-built for that purpose. They would go up, and they'd be done probably in a half an hour, as opposed to a half-day event with setting up scaffolding and ladders and everything else.
Could you have painted and replaced the netting at the rink at Simsbury Farms with this?
Probably too big of a project to do with this. That would have been an awfully big project, but
Okay, just trying to get a scale.
I also think, I know Orlando has used the other lift. We would probably use this or allow them to use this down at the Performing Arts Center where they have to get up to that roof.
Oh, yeah.
We certainly share well.
Good.
In our facility, all the high roofs, the lighting, everything, this takes all the fall protection, safety concerns out of it. It's
Yep.
no brainer for that person.
We have $27,000 for a medium-duty lift. It would actually be a little bit smaller than the blue lift shown here. This is the one that's currently used for about 80% of the work that we're doing. When we bring in the police cars every other Thursday, we go through the entire patrol fleet in one day. You can only imagine how many times it's up and down in the lift. You can sort of see there where that post is in relation to the door. When you get in to park the truck or the police car, it's very difficult to get out with that post there. So this lift would be more of a drive up, lift up, let us do what we need to do. It would certainly make the mechanics' jobs a lot easier and a lot safer. And with the amount of work that we have, it certainly is justified. We were going to actually buy it last year with year end, but the decision was, since it had only been in the budget 1 year, to wait until this year. But I don't know if anything you want to add on this one, Kevin? I know this is really important to our.
It is, and it's really for small vehicles. It's the one that we'd be getting is almost like a drive-up one that just lifts it, and it's gonna, we have designated an area, it's not gonna take up any space, we're not creating space. This also includes all electrical work that needs to be done with this cost. It's something that it's gonna make us more productive, safer.
This one's just for a light-duty F-150 pickup truck for highway. Is especially important when the guys, especially before, let's say, a big rain event where they're out checking their routes. Using a pickup truck versus using a 46,000-pound dump truck is certainly the way we want to go. We would be looking to add something to the fleet with this one. It's also, again, when they're doing that sign inspection work, when they're doing the getting around town, it's certainly better to have a few extra pickup trucks as opposed to the heavy trucks, which are just so costly to operate. And every time they get in and out of the large trucks, they're climbing up, they're climbing down, and you're buying a very small lottery ticket of the chance to slip and fall. And from time to time, our workforce is getting a little older, and we want to be cognizant of that and make good choices.
It's probably a 17-year lifespan. It's gonna be work. It's not gonna be pushing snow real hard and being abused.
Then you give it to Tom for another 20?
Yes, it's not that.
That's what we used to do, right?
This is, it's actually, this isn't the same one we have. This is a little bigger than we'd actually buy, but you've probably all seen the Buildings Grounds back. I think my first year here, we bought the John Deere. They use it year-round. They use it for snow removal, salting the sidewalks. They use it for mowing, leaf collection, and spring cleanups. It is used year-round, and it's probably one of their most valuable assets. My first winter here, we had our oldest group of employees, all of them, along Route 10, chipping ice away off of the sidewalk because they didn't have this tool. And as they did that, the DOT truck came by and just showered them with snow and slush, and I'm going, this is just foolish. So they've had this, they've used it, it's nearing the end of its useful life, and yeah, definitely time to replace it, but it's been a real asset to the division. Down at the WPCA, we're looking for $15,000 to replace just the body on a Ford, a 2013 Ford F-350. Again, we're extending the life of this vehicle by doing this. I don't know if you want to add anything on this one, Tony?
Yeah, this is the truck that we use for snow removal and salt maintenance. Obviously, the body is rotting out from the salt. Very low miles on the truck, so we'll probably get another 5 years out of this vehicle by just spending the $15,000 now instead of $70,000 to replace the truck.
How's the decision made for this to be CNR as opposed to coming out of the sewer?
This all still comes out of the sewer.
Oh, it does, okay.
It's just, I don't know, Amy, if you want to talk to this, it's just how you're classifying it, but it's all coming out of user fees.
It's just where we're approving it, yeah.
Oh, my favorite one ever.
Every year you got one of these, right?
This, I think, is the last year that we have this. We've caught up, but
Oh my
by
God.
doing the sewer lining, we are literally inserting a pipe into the old pipe. We are sealing up all of the joints so that clean water does not get into our sanitary sewer water. Why does that matter, Chris? Because if clean water gets in, now we're spending money to clean groundwater.
Just to go at that, we're actually going to keep putting money in the budget to do this. We're in the last year of a 3-year contract right now for that project, but in a couple more years, we'll rebid it and do more of the town.
And not that we're playing games, again, WPCA also serves Avon and Granby, but we do that based upon flows. By doing this, we're actually reducing our flows because we're taking that clean water out. We've certainly made them aware that they should be doing the same thing because their percentage of what they pay is going to go up as we take out more of our clean water. It's really, Tony's done a great job with this program. I don't think I've gotten a single complaint from a resident as we've gone through these neighborhoods and done this. Very little disruption. We're not digging up the street. We're just replacing a pipe underground, out of sight, out of mind.
Just like those,
When this year's all done, all of Terriffill will be completed with all brand-new sanitary sewers basically in Terriffill.
just like the YouTube video I've seen where they put the blue stuff in one end and it goes through and then comes out the other end?
That's basically.
And then it hardens
It's
itself?
a big balloon.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So after the 3-year program, what percentage of the town will still need to have this process
There's
done?
parts throughout the town. Basically, we're trying to do all of the clay pipes in town. Luckily, this town is very young for sewers. Most of the sewers were put in the 1970s. We've actually done a lot along Hot Meadow Street, which was the older sections. So there's parts throughout areas of the town. I would say probably about 70% of the town is PVC pipe. So there's probably another 30% that we have to go through and do these areas with.
The PVC pipe has gasketed joints. It fits together nice and tight. The clay pipe is much looser. Every joint has a place where water can get in, roots can get in. So that's why that's the target-rich piping.
Understood.
What's, just curiosity, how much does it reduce the flow by? Because you're taking up space, so.
The-
You're reducing the diameter of the pipe, the original
Well, it
pipe,
actually does- It reduces it very.
minimally, so it's that thin.
Yeah. Usually, the goal to do it, when engineering firms come in and do it, the goal when they spend $1 million is to reduce the flow by 10%.
And-
We actually, I still have to go through it with Terriffill part of town. There's other issues there with roof drains and foundation drains that still drain to the sewers because that's how the houses were designed. But with just Terriffill alone, we're looked at about 20% flow reduction.
Wow.
Wow.
But the actual capacity of the pipe is really not affected because that new liner is smoother and the friction, the improved or the lack of friction increases the flow.
Yeah, it's like getting your arteries
cleaned out.
Stored out.
Exactly. So if you want to save some money, don't go to Hartford Hospital.
Right.
Stop down on a Tuesday at the plant.
We got a two-front on this side. We also have HVAC controls and replacement of WPCA for $50,000. And it's just it's replacing their outdated building management system. I should just, Tony, you should just go all over this. Polymer pumps. This is
Basically, right now, the polymer, what we use is it's a coagulant for our sludge disposal. We use that. Currently, we're using a dry polymer system that is being eliminated in 5 years. So to get ahead of that project, we're going to switch over to liquid. Putting these new pumps in is actually going to save us money as well, because we'll be using less polymer with the liquid. And next year's project is actually for a polymer storage system. But $60,000 to put us 2 new pumps and upgrade the whole system and actually eliminate the existing dry polymer system completely.
Do I dare ask what a polymer
No.
is? I have an idea.
Nope.
It reminds me of the colonoscopy scenario, using a powder or a liquid. So,
Next.
I'm leaving that one where it is.
sorry, I had to say it.
Oh, it's just before lunch too, Wendy.
It's one way to get your budget approved.
There you go. This one's kind of a tough one to talk about today, but, you know, for the last 14 or so years, we've been doing pavement management. We've had the number, originally we were spending about 1.8 million for a couple years. We got our roads into really great condition. We dropped that number down to about 1.25 million for the last few years. But right now, we're seeing about a 30% increase in asphalt prices. We're hoping that number is going to go down. But based upon that increase, we have bumped this out from 1.25 to 1.7. That gets us 10 miles of paving every year. By paving 10 miles every year, it keeps our roads on about a 17-year replacement cycle in round numbers. Again, I think we have some really good roads. I think the residents have always appreciated that. When we've put pavement out to referendum, it's always been one of the highest vote getters. And I think it's a value to the town, so.
That, if I recall correctly, the 1,100s for the next 2 years, and then it drops to 750, is that, are we, the 1.1 million drops to 750,000, is that correct, in the bonding schedule throughout the year?
We would still
And I
be
was
looking to
curious.
keep it, I don't think we would drop to 750. We are getting to the point, even last year, we were trying some new techniques. And what the new techniques are is, years ago, we got out of the business of doing what's called reconstruction. And when we first started the pavement management program, we had roads that you needed to dig them up, put down new base, reshape them, similar to what happened on Woodland Street, on a regular basis because they were so bad. We made a decision as a community to fix the roads that were in poor condition before fixing the roads that were in terrible condition for a few years. Because by keeping the good roads good, we were spending $8 to $12 a square yard as opposed to $25 a square yard to do the full depth reconstruction. We slowly picked away at the ones that needed that full depth reconstruction, and now we're just in the resurfacing business. Rarely do we have to do any expensive, $35, $30 per square yard repairs, and that's the whole benefit of this program, is keeping your roads in a good condition, kind of like replacing the shingles on your roof before the plywood rots. That's basically what we've been doing. And again, this I think is an anomaly just because the cost has gone up so much, and hopefully it'll be coming back down in the near future.
I think to support what Heather says, though, is this is the temporary bump in the bonding side, because you've got the 1.1 out of the total rate. That's what you're going
That's
at.
the page I couldn't
Yeah,
find. Yeah.
it's the capital request one time. So you got 1.1 for bonds, 200 operating, and then 400 grants. So the 1.1 is 24 and 25, and then we drop back down to 750 and 26 is what we're hoping for, right? Is energy costs and petroleum costs and paving costs go down, right? That's what we're thinking. Okay. So the question for us is do we absorb, I know where you're going, so do we absorb the increase through bonds, or do we absorb the increase through other mechanisms of our funding sources, right?
Yes, and it's always a favorite question when I get asked whether we should bond or operating budget for pavement, and I always try to defer that to Amy.
Yep. So Barb Pettigine's watching on the Cape right now, and she says we should put it in operating, right?
Just,
Yep.
Well, it is interesting because if you're forecasting potentially the price could return down, then what is do we just pay for it versus bond for it to get back onto a smooth? If you're anticipating a return to a smooth
we're hoping.
allocation.
We're hoping for a return to a lower price.
unfortunately, with everything, that once the prices are up, they're just gonna
Yep.
roll.
Yeah.
It's sad, I don't, not to sugarcoat it, but we love just to have the prices go up. It's painful, that 1.7 million from where we were.
Yeah. Yeah, the cost curve is always steep. The decrease curve is always very, very slow. Yeah.
Yeah, the other big driver, not just the asphalt costs, but the increase in diesel fuel costs, specifically hard on this industry.
So is there a surcharge back again and all that?
They're not calling it a surcharge, but everything went
It's
up.
in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not going to lose money.
Yep.
They're not going to lose money.
No, nor should they.
So what if of your peers, I understand that I fully understand the deferred maintenance, the concept of deferred maintenance, incomplete projects, PAC, farms, I didn't say that. So with this though, what if you move to 18 years? Does that change the cost program? 19, what are your peers in conference say that in
Right-
this
right
area,
now-
this type of material, this weather, it's 16 years is the right root circle, it's 19, what is it?
All right, we're going to go deep into asphalt, Chris. Years ago, you used to get over 20 years out of a resurfacing with some repair work in the middle. You would resurface it, you would crack seal it probably twice during its life, and you would get about 20 years. Asphalt has changed. They've reduced the amount of VOCs in the asphalt in order to protect the environment. The product doesn't last as long as it used to. Many of our peers would probably say 15 years, as opposed to we're using 17. 17 is a big number. We have some roads that will last 20 years. We have some roads that last 14 years. Depends upon traffic. It depends upon the base. It depends upon drainage. Right now, we are spending almost 20% less than industry recommends because we have our roads in such a good condition. I went to a seminar a couple months ago where, they were bragging about, you want to be down in like the 70 cent per square yard price in a given year for your total asphalt that you maintain. We are close to 49 cents. And again, we have some very, very high quality roads. Our overall roadway network rating is very, very high.
Right,
above
so
85,
so
right?
if you move to, maybe I'm just too simple in my thinking, but if you move to an average of 18 years
Yep.
replacement, does that allow you to take your 1.7 down closer to 1.3?
Yeah, what you would be
You
doing
guys just
is,
drove a little slower.
what you'd be doing is you're saying instead of doing 10 miles, we're going to do 9.5. And where the fine line is making sure we get to resurface the roads before we get to roads that are in a condition that they need that
Right, but we have,
level of service.
as we know in Simsbury, we have which is one thing I'm most proud of, that we have an expectation of the best of everything, right? So that's okay, I like that. So, if we did 10 if we did them every 18 years, would we still have that same rating versus every 17?
You would not have the same rating, and where I'm going to call it the cliff is if you get to the point that you're not resurfacing the roads before they completely fail. Now, instead of paying $12 a square yard, you're going to be paying $25 a square yard because it's not.
I'll leave it at this, I get that, I'm saying, are we so far ahead of the failure that we have 5 years of cushion in our replacement?
There is probably a level of cushion, but we're.
I'll leave it to you to tell me that, I'm trying to figure out
there's a
how to
level
get
of cushion.
closer to one, because this is gonna be a big, let's just assume Kevin's right, this is gonna be a big impact every year now. It's gonna
Yeah.
take 600,000 away from something else.
What we're going to be doing this year, that's, again, we have these one-page slides, so we're limited, but what we're going to be doing this year and what we started last year is we're looking at new techniques. We use every technique in the book on our paving. There are communities that have two solutions. They either do full-depth reconstruction or they mill and pave. We do what we call shim and overlays. We do some level of chip seal. We're going to be doing a thing called rubber chip seal this year. We did a microsurface last year on West Mountain. West Mountain was in pretty good shape, but we did this very thin, very cost-effective overlay, which is supposed to boost that life an extra 7 years. So what's not shown here, what we're not talking about in the 10 miles, is all of these other fixes that we're mixing in there to try to really test the boundaries of what we can do and stretch the dollars as far as we can. So if we can do our paving and get to our goal this year and only spend 1.5, that's all we'd spend. We have no problem giving money back. So yeah, there's no shortage of discussions on how close we can go to save money. You took my best picture out of this, Tom. You're killing me. We had a nice picture of a snowplow. This is actually the old chipper truck. It probably should have been when we talked about the chip truck, but it just kind of shows you the extent of the rust. When the truck goes by at that 16 miles an hour in front of your house, you don't see that the bodies are actually rusting away. One of the things that you don't think about, we've replaced the windshields in the trucks. You say, why in the world would you replace a windshield on a truck? About midway through their life, the windshields actually wear out because unlike the normal world where it's snowing, you may go and run your errand and come home, they're out for 20 hours straight in a snowstorm, every snowstorm, with the windshield wipers going. They actually wear out the windshields. And just a sense of, these are work trucks. I know that, you look at this price and you think, wow, that's got to be a nice truck. They are just big, ugly tools to move snow and move construction materials. So
Bondo can't take care of that?
you can try. Like I said, we stretch them as far as is reasonable, but as Kevin said, you start getting to a certain point within the life of the truck, and some of the systems fail, things like a transmission. I mean,
Yeah, I get you.
When was the last time we did this? We did this before.
We just every year.
We haven't done this one.
Okay, and so I'm saying, so I mean, the fact is, the reality is it just run this program, so why are we even?
yeah, and where it's programmed out is, we've had people talk about, oh, should you lease it? We have all the benefits of leasing where each year we've bought a new truck, so our fleet, the average age stays at about 12
we
years.
roll one off.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is what the Board of Ed should be doing with their buses, right, Lisa?
Staying in my lane. So the sidewalk program, it's been going on for about 6 years. It's been very successful. We have 14 miles of sidewalk. A lot of them had looked like the picture up in the upper right. This is important in terms of getting ADA compliance, protecting ourselves from a potential lawsuit associated with that. And it really has enhanced the neighborhoods where we've done these projects. All of the design work for these has been done in-house, which is extremely cost-effective. So it's been a really positive program.
Tom, considering all the grant programs for sidewalks we have right now, what is the capacity to add this on with your workforce?
This has been ongoing,
Okay.
this program, for 6 years. So, and this is actually being run through Public Works Administration, not through our engineering department. And what we've done is essentially work with good contractors, and we're saying replace in kind, as opposed to getting a full survey and complicated plans. We are making this a performance spec type of project, so we've really minimized our work, and we make up for that by just monitoring the construction much closer. But it's significant cost savings to doing it this way.
Thanks.
Refurbish the elevators. I think we've talked about this over the years. We have documents. We're probably going to be out to bid next week with them, and we would just be looking to fund it starting in July. We've had a couple of failures at Eno. Really unfortunate because when it goes down, we just can't get the parts. It's not for lack of trying.
So I have another question on this one. I apologize.
Yep.
Is there a cost savings in doing the elevators for all three buildings at the same time? Or, could you prioritize one building this year and hold off on a couple of the others?
There is probably a small cost savings, but even with that, they're not all going to be going at the same time. It's probably going to be that we're going to do Eno, then the library, then town hall.
Okay.
Just because very few of the contractors are going to have the workforce that could do 3 projects at the same time.
Question, I was looking at last year's CIP and last year it showed we were asking for $635K, so it's $242,500 more this year. Is that just due to cost increases?
It's a combination of cost increases. We actually brought on a consultant that did the preliminary design work and identified much tighter what needed to be done and what could be done. And again, we're being somewhat conservative. We're hoping that we get good numbers, but we're not sure.
And so we didn't do the library's elevator when we redid the library?
No. We also didn't do the library large AC unit when we redid the library.
Yeah, I knew that. Okay.
The Eno one though, what was the event, the Martin Luther?
Yep,
The elevators were out or something?
that was correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
It does mean it's a priority, especially the senior center.
Well, and Lisa, don't get mad at me. As much as the library has had some trouble with their elevators, it's not the same where, at Eno, you almost have to shut the building down. It is to the point when we
Yeah.
can't provide ADA access to the building, we're failing in our core mission.
Agreed.
The Drake Hill Flower Bridge. I love that picture. It's under design right now. We'd be looking to start this in the, bid it and start it in the fall, and it would be repainting it. The committee has already picked the color, which was great, because that was one thing I refused to do. And again, I think when you look at Simsbury, you know, I talked a little bit about the Performing Arts Center and how that's really the center of Simsbury. Can't believe how many television commercials for different things have been filmed on our Flower Bridge. Charge admission, so.
So do we not get any licensing for that?
We should.
This, I keep bringing this up, I'm gonna bring it up again here, just for consideration later on. You know, we're bonding almost $2 million for the Flower Bridge. I see potential to use ARPA funding for this. I'd have to defer to Amy to see what we would be saving in the years out from debt service if we did that. I think you quoted that once before, but I don't, was it $100,000 a year? So that would reduce the taxes, and it would, again, I keep saying this also, it would give the residents something to point to for their ARPA dollars, which we did last year, which was part of the goal. So I'm just gonna put that out there for the discussion later, if that's okay. If you don't disagree, that's fine, but.
Well, I have something to sort of add to that question. So, we have under our ARPA, kind of proposed projects that we've already been given. There are 2 dam projects on there, and when you look at the deterioration of the Flower Ridge versus, the time that we have until a potential dam breaches if you don't address it, which of these is more urgent in terms of a real need to get it done?
That's a good question.
Very good question. And it's not one that there's an easy answer to. The deterioration on the Flower Bridge, I used to do bridge inspection many, many, many years ago. It looks bad. You look at it and you see the X bars, the lacing bars rusted through, and oh my gosh, it's terrible. They provide a structural value, but they are not a critical member to the bridge. The dams are in, they are not currently meeting codes, but even if the dams were to fail, they're low hazard dams. They're not going to necessarily take out homes. The dams are very expensive once you get into work on them. I think I'm comfortable with the current schedule that we have. Honestly, this one, if this project had been delayed a year, it wouldn't make a huge difference in terms of the deterioration. It's this one, getting this done early is really just knocking it off our list, so to
Public
speak,
opinion.
and adding the asset to the community. I think.
Do we run the risk of continued cost escalation? So if we wait?
Minor.
What was 1.6 is 1.9, is could now be 2.3, 2.4. I mean,
Clearly, minor cost increases in terms of every year, there's a little bit more deterioration. We did find 1 or 2 issues when we did the revised structural evaluation.
Okay.
Nothing that's I'm going to lose sleep over, but you know, there are small elements that are starting to become structural issues.
Okay.
I remember a few years ago, we actually had to load restrict the bridge for a short time. We made a repair that was able to correct that. Actually, to your point, we did that in-house at the highway garage. We welded up some steel. We made a device to redistribute some loads in-house in probably less than a week, and it would have been, I think, a $36,000 contract to have it go out, so.
wow.
Just, could I ask for a point of clarity? You raised it up. I have fully admit that I am not up to speed on this. The ARPA list has moved around a lot. So is there ARPA dollars to the dams? Is that what you're saying?
2 dams.
In the future.
And one of
Right?
those is the Stoddard Reservoir?
Yeah.
It
We
was
use-
sent to us by town staff earlier this week in the questions, the list of the ARPA.
Yeah, but the list has also moved around a lot, so I was familiar with the old list.
Could be
Okay.
flowing.
Did we do the design work with ARPA money, though?
Yes.
Right, that's how we got it started, right?
Yep.
With ARPA money? Okay.
I would just say
Yeah.
one thing for the timing. I mean, you know, if there is a critical need that would supersede this, but I would also point to this as, I think you said at the very beginning, it's one of the bigger tourism things that we sell coming to Simsbury. So the more we can enhance that, the more, you know, bang for our buck we get for the
Yeah,
parks.
and similar, we are going to be very cognizant of when we do this work. We are
Yes,
going to try to
people-
schedule it around and have the smallest impact on the bridge in terms of its use.
How long is it gonna take? Give or take?
Probably 7 months.
Okay.
It's going to be completely tented because
Oh.
they need to make sure that the paint doesn't go into the river.
Yeah.
Bridge is just a little bit too big to do what they did in Canton, where actually you pick it up, move it off, clean it, paint it, pick it up, move it back. It's-
Oh, right.
That would be
And if you
cool.
did it right, what's the next investment?
In that bridge?
As far as when we're gonna have this project again, just give us an idea. I'm not reason to stop it or
I
start
hope
it.
to be long retired.
Is it like a 50-year, is it a 50-year kind of fix? I don't know, I mean,
You should probably be back looking at it in 25 years.
Okay. Somebody else.
But again, in 25 years, what you're going to be doing is going out and doing some touch-up paint, some spot repairs. One of the things that I'm curious to look at is, can we do something different with the watering system on the bridge? Because that's contributing in some ways to some of the
Deterioration.
deterioration.
Okay.
Oh, every day you missed water on it. Every day you missed water on it. So any place that there's the slightest little imperfection in the paint system, you're just introducing moisture every day for a few hours.
Yep. Over 10 years, that does something, yeah, I get it.
But based on the design work that we funded last year, and that's in progress,
Yep.
you would be ready to go to do this piece?
This fall.
Okay. Otherwise, you'd have to shelve kind of your design work till we brought it back up, so. All right, thanks.
The Meadowwood Barn restoration, we're looking at $650,000. We have a number of grants from SHPO and the Trust for Public Land. I think we were all out there a few months ago looking at these barns. Sadly, I think it would have been great to be looking at these about 15 years ago. The deterioration has just really ramped up. Basically, once the roofs failed, or the roofing system failed, and we started getting moisture inside, was really crippling to these structures. They, at this point, have all had temporary repairs to stabilize them. Fortunately, this winter came late, so we haven't lost any new barns. The big expense here is that they're just so big, to get new roofs on is going to be very expensive. So,
And the ask for this year is, it's 57.5 out of capital reserves. Right.
this is our portion of the project to get the multi-use trail from Route 10 to Curtis Park. This trail is going to be somewhat expensive due to the fact that we have some impact, or we have some review by National Park Service because of the wild and scenic designation of the Farmington River. We are going to pay for the vast majority of this, 80% of this, out of grants, but we're hoping to be able to get this going possibly as early as late fall, if not next spring.
Was that a mile?
About
So it's $900,000 for a mile of sidewalk?
trail.
Trail.
Yep. And
Sidewalk.
we may shorten it up just a little bit, is one of the things.
I'm not knocking you, but it's all the permits and all the bureaucracy, it's not actually the construction, right?
We have two turtle consultants budgeted for this. Sean, I can promise you, I did not want to hire any turtle consultants.
Just remember that when we designate stuff, because we caused that. We asked for that to be, we had a whole wild and scenic committee, right? So it's a great idea, but what's it costing us? $500,000 more?
Yeah, well, and it's tough. I'm all for protecting the
I am
environment.
too,
I'm all for
but-
protecting the river, but when we're adding in some of the requirements, like we have sections that are going to be pervious asphalt, it's not, to me, a good value for the town dollar. Eno Memorial Hall, we're looking at just under $400,000 to begin the design for the infrastructure upgrade, which would occur probably in 24, 25. It's a very large project. Basically, the infrastructure of that building is dated and needs to be replaced. Bridge improvements, our portion for the LOTSIP grant would be $372,000. This is basically a $3.7 million ask that we've put into for the LOTSIP program. LOTSIP is one of the programs through CROG that we've used quite a bit. It's actually what's paying for the trail that we're doing right now into Bloomfield, from Parisfield to Bloomfield. Our thought on this one is it's going to be a large project. Might as well go with bigger projects in LOTSIP than smaller projects because of the administrative work that's required. This would be a few years out before we would actually be in construction, and quite honestly, the cost will probably go from 3.7 up as we get into design, but I believe our $372,000 contribution will stay the same.
And that's just the climax portion? There's no hit to Bushy Hill there?
Nope, that would just be for the Climax Road, and we're hoping to also widen it out, possibly make it a place for a future bike.
Yeah, because climax is pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Climax is already pretty wide, so there's really the potential that if the bridge was a little wider, we could, at a fairly nominal cost in the future, put some sort of dedicated bike lane or something like that along there.
That's actually a pretty big bridge, isn't it? I mean, people don't realize.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Because of the wetlands on the other side across from Bushy Hill, right? And people don't understand, and then it comes through, and that bridge extends pretty far up, yeah.
And I think the key thing to keep in mind is we're looking at paying 10% of the overall project cost and getting the rest funded through LOTSIP.
Wow.
Who does the bridge under Bushy Hill? State?
State.
That's theirs. So there's no way to, this one's not close enough for that one to,
You and me are going to make a call to DOT together.
You can't ask such tough questions about the state. They can't handle those sorts of things, Chris.
Right now, we're out to bid with two smaller projects, Firetown Road and Barn Door Hills. These are just simple rehabilitations. That's why you're getting two bridges done for $400,000. This is keeping bridges in service. These are two very small bridges that, many of us would drive over and wouldn't even recognize. This has been on the books for a number of years, and like I said, it's just out to bid now.
How many bridges do we have in town?
How many bridges?
Kevin, start calculating.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, there's a lot of projects these years. We'll get to the fact that we have all these projects later today, but primary clarifier for $1 million at the WPCA. As you can see in the picture circled in orange there, that is not an Olympic swimming pool. That is the old primary clarifier. Do not go swimming in there.
Is that different from the polymer?
That is very different than the polymer. That's been out of service for the most part for a number of years. It has some structural cracks and deficiencies. This is looking at basically putting it back into service, or having the potential to put it back in service. And more importantly, we'd be putting a cover on it that would allow Tony some additional space down at this facility. I don't know if you want to add anything to this exciting one, Tony?
Yeah, the fun part about this project, even though we haven't been using this for process reasons, because of our national permit, all of our equipment has to be 100% operational at all times. So this puts us back into a good 100% operational facility.
So what's doing its job and replacing it?
Basically, the reason we're not using those right now is they steal the food from the process, layman's terms. So by keeping them offline, we're actually being able to feed our bugs and keeping the process good. We'll probably have to put them back on when we get our renewed permit next year with all the PFAS requirements that are coming out and any different changes we might have for phosphorus removal. We'll probably have to put them back online, and it's going to be an additional chemical cost because it's just the whole steamroll effect of cost if they change.
So we will be using.
So this has to come back online,
Yeah.
you're saying?
And sometime in the
To meet
future, we'll have to
regular-
come back online, yes.
And the big point, Tony, who's paying for this?
Sewer
User
user.
fees.
We get it.
Yeah, that's what we don't.
I don't care.
Hey, where's the gold berm? Are we doing that still, or is that
Did
pushed
not get
off?
the grant, so we're not building the gold
We did not
berm.
get the grant for that yet, and so, and again, to go back with Tom, FEMA is still working on getting all the elevations, and so until they get the elevations, and we are looking at different funding options for that as well, to put in for different grants for that.
Can't use all that crushed aggregate to
A little bit porous for that type
$10
of
million
thing.
berm?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's actually registered as a dam.
Yeah. If we called it something else, is it cheaper?
You would think.
Okay. Near and dear to my heart, the last one, I think, is the Pine Hill sewer replacement. We just met this past Thursday, WPCA and Pine Hill. We've come to agreement that we're going to be replacing their sanitary sewers. That's going to quickly go into design, and we're hopefully going to be in construction this fall with that project. In all honesty, I know that the Pine Hill folks came out in force here a couple of times. They've honestly been very fair for us in the last few meetings and really great to work with. They know the way around the treatment plant. They've been down there for so many meetings, so really hoping we're gonna get some good bid values and be able to give them a good product, so.
Nice.
Grit system. Our friends in Manchester closed their landfill to Tony's byproduct of grit. As such, we're going to be looking to add a $250,000 grit system, which will wash the grit, which will then make it no longer a classified waste material.
And then what do you do with it?
Well, the state still hasn't told us that yet.
Oh, good.
So we're gonna have clean stuff just piling up?
Yes, but it will be about a quarter of what we dispose of right now. The long-term solutions in other states, I know we've talking to Brian about it, a lot of other states use it in their sand traps and golf courses, because basically it turns into a sand material, looks like beach sand. It's actually fluffier than normal sand, so it actually
Really?
works well for golf courses.
Now we're starting,
But it's a reduced special, it's become similar to what
amazing what you
Public
can
Works takes out of catch basins. It's classified as a waste in that means now. So it provides a little bit extra spots for disposal.
or it goes back into Kevin's pile.
Or it goes back into Kevin's
We could
pocket.
use
Put
pipe
it, put it,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's, I don't
Okay.
think it can be used within town. There's not a cost associated.
Yeah, currently our cost, because we have to bring it up to.
Tony is willing to share all the grit he has.
I will be glad.
So this
Yeah.
is another thing where we have to do something. We have to clean this stuff. We have no solution for it.
Correct.
The current solution is going away.
Correct.
Because this is you're saying this is an
The current solution-
absolute. This is not a nice to have.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah, this is
I
a.
know what
and
to
again,
pay
this-
for, I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, right, currently, because Manchester Landfill stopped accepting all
Right,
special waste.
if we have to treat it, or we don't have anywhere
We
to,
have to dispose of it
dump
in
it,
Massachusetts. Massachusetts is the closest spot, Fitchburg, Massachusetts, so Haynes is hauling it up to Fitchburg, Massachusetts for us, once a month. You know, in a 20-yard dumpster up to Massachusetts, so we're having to pay the additional cost for hauling it up to Massachusetts, plus the disposal cost, which quadrupled, having to bring it
Just
up.
leave the top off on the highway, so half of it's gone by the time you get there.
As soon as it leaves the plant, it's out of my hands, so.
They should just forget that screen on top and just goes
Nice and
blowing.
fluffy, it blows away, right?
just put a sign, say stay back
Massachusetts.
10 feet from truck.
It's our payback for the solar field they dumped on us.
So I just want to take a pulse. Like, what more do we have to do for Public
Keep going,
Works?
finish this.
All of Public Works?
We got-
I just wanted to make sure
We've
everybody's,
got 4 more slides.
okay. Oh, we're getting to service improvements now? Okay. Okay.
That's good. I thought we were going to do that later. Okay. This is probably one near and dear to all of our hearts, but adding what's called a mechanic driver position to the highway department. Every year for the last decade, we've added to the various fleet. And as I said at the beginning of my presentation, we don't just maintain our vehicles. We maintain all of the other vehicles. So we maintain all of the police cars. We maintain all of the vehicles here for town hall. We have been talking with, and we'd like to do the vehicle maintenance and fleet management for the Board of Ed. Fleet management being a little bit beyond just fixing the vehicles, but helping with what should the replacement schedule be, what type of vehicles should you be purchasing. They've struggled with that over the last few years, and in some cases, they've bought vehicles that may not be the best suited for what they're doing. That, between Kevin and Reed, who's our head of our fleet services, that's what they do. And we really think that if we are able to do this, they originally had talked about a shared position where I think they were going to pay $25,000 a year towards this position. But we are right now strapped very thin for mechanics within our division. And again, they keep all these things running. Every year, everything gets to be more and more complicated, more and more difficult to maintain. Our chainsaws have computer chips in them now. You can't make this up, and the technicians that do the work have to know how to do that. So they're maintaining over 125 vehicles right now, 80 pieces of small equipment, pumps, blowers, chainsaws, that type of thing. So that's certainly a weakness in our division right now.
So you've got 3, it'll go to 3.5 mechanics?
It would go to essentially, I would call it 3 mechanics or 3.5.
For
yeah,
200
plus vehicles.
vehicles. That's
Yeah.
inclusive of the BOE, right?
It would be going forward, yeah. We did a analysis using industry standards Right now, we should be at, I think it was on the last slide, 5.
4.8, just about 5, we should have.
Yep.
The problem is, it's not like working on an old 350 Chevy engine where you and I could do some work on it. Diagnostic stuff on this, and it seems like Reed is just spending hours a day chasing things down and truly orchestrating things with the police department, with the, there's several vehicles up here that, and all the good work that the assessor has done for the town, having that new position, they have a new vehicle that we're maintaining.
The new building official, new vehicle.
Yeah, so it's, and it's, we're doing the doggy paddle going downstream, it's just not, it's not working, and to stay on top of it.
So,
No, I've asked so many questions, go ahead.
my question is,
Question asker.
it's a new shared service with Board of Ed. I missed the meeting Tuesday night, the Board of Ed approval, was that Tuesday night? And there was discussion there that they needed to reduce their operating budget. So if this position is gonna add to their operating budget, just a question, how
Yeah.
do they absorb that?
That's, again, I haven't had any direct conversation with them. Originally, they were very, very excited about this. This past year, more than a few times, they've come over to us hat in hand saying, we have no way to fix our truck. We have no way to fix our truck.
So there is not a mechanic on the Board of Ed side.
No, they've been
That is-
contracting it out.
And what is the expenditure per year on contracting it out?
We've seen different numbers. I don't know their budget that well.
Gotcha,
I
okay.
know that they have an aging fleet of diesel pickup trucks. Generally, our pickup trucks are not diesel, they're gasoline engines. They're cheaper long-term for us. Diesels are great and they have more power, but it's a huge upfront cost, and then the maintenance is very expensive. So, and we'd always, in the middle of a snowstorm, if something breaks, we're gonna fix it, we're gonna help them out. But this past year, year and a half, it's been, hey, Tom, Kevin, can you help me out? My truck is broken. Hey, can you help us out? And we can't, we want to be helpful, but there needs to be a process, and we need to really get
And this. this aligns with a Board of Selectmen priority of the shared
Absolutely,
services.
I get that too. I know that, the fire department financials is like a secret society, but they have a mechanic, correct? Or at least one, or if not more than? Do you, for not, certainly not 200 vehicles. Do you guys ever get assistance from them, from the mechanic for anything? or-
For a while, we were actually we had almost like a networking group where we were working with the fire department, Paynes, our mechanics, and we would have, quarterly meetings, just chit-chat about what tools, equipment, and stuff. We haven't done that in a while. We actually are using the same fleet software that the fire department is using now. But again, we're different worlds. We also, Tom just left. The Parks and Rec mechanics come out and talk to our mechanics all the time. There's good collaboration there, but they're not sending vehicles over to us to be repaired or vice versa.
Correspondence, no hands-on with the fire department or,
Yeah.
with Paynes. That was really just getting the minds together as far as what, industry standard is.
Back to the prior question, Amy, do you have a ballpark on what the Board of Ed was averaging on the contracted to fix their vehicles?
Yeah, we do. I have to look it up. We did it a while ago.
Okay. I mean, just a ballpark. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? But are we talking about 10,000 or 75,000? That's fine, but later, tomorrow, Monday, whenever.
I thought they told us 18, but we thought that was low.
But the fact that they don't have an in-house mechanic is the.
It's not just the contracting cost?
Let's careful here. The condition of their fleet reflects
Yeah.
the lack of maintenance, a thing called fluid film, which is oil in the bottom of our trucks. It's not oil, but it's getting all the nooks and crannies. Salt is awful. It's ruining your car, all our vehicles, the importance of getting the underwash. They have vehicles that are very low miles, that are, the trade value is
Not lasting.
is not
Yeah.
what it should be.
Yeah.
And the amount of vehicles that they have, with the amount of personnel, they should be able to get what I talked about, that F-150 getting 15 to 20 years because it's not a workhorse. They should be able to get that, and unfortunately, it's not their fault. Them just sending the equipment to get to Moe's or pick a place and doing the bare minimum, as opposed to going the extra step and really preventative maintenance.
Understood.
Just to, fix the brakes when they make noise.
And it's shown itself, we've had a couple of these times they've come knocking on our doors because the truck in the middle of a snowstorm or just the middle of the day just has broken down.
Yeah.
Well, just to comment, it shows that these aren't even considered, but there's 2 other positions that you would like to fill, if you could have everything, so. just-
Well, we'll get it to, yeah. We did put in, we'll go to the next one. We did put in, I guess we're kind of taking it out of order. Before, we were talking about the sheer number of projects that we have going on in the next year or two, between the different bridges, the dams, the barns, the bike paths, the parking lots. We've probably never seen more projects in engineering than we have now. Certainly not in my time here, but I don't even think prior to that. We had put in for $50,000 as for on-call services for engineering support. We really probably should have been putting in for a new engineer this year, but we don't even believe we could find somebody if we wanted one. And we're hoping that this is just a bubble for the next 3 years. But if we don't get to have this additional flex, the additional money for the on-call services when we need them, sadly, we're already seeing that we're not able to apply for some of the grants. There was just a recreational trails grant that we had an opportunity to apply for. We didn't have the staff time or resources to do that. So with all of the upcoming grants that may be available, this is critical to us having the capacity to get that done. And I think really, when you look at the new structure, we are more efficient than we were a year ago. It's too bad Adam's not here. I'll say nice things about him. Adam's capacity is very different than Jeff's. Adam is doing design work. Adam is intricately involved in the consulting world. He knows which consultants can do which services for us. He's been a huge asset to our entry-level engineer, Dan Gannon, in terms of teaching him some skills and bringing him up. And we've worked very efficiently, but there's just so many hours in a week. And with all of the new projects, we are not having the capacity to take on some of these new grant requests and other things.
Fair enough.
Energy manager, our sustainability group, has asked for this several years in a row. Maybe this is not the year, but it certainly was worth bringing up. They asked to put this forward. It's if the board wants to go to that next level of having somebody who could help with coordinating outreach and everything else. We do a lot of energy management now. Oddly enough, I'm a certified energy manager. I don't necessarily have the time to spend on that. We have a project administrator who does most of our energy, but does not do that public outreach and that coordination as well as if we had a dedicated staff person to it.
To what extent do you think that this position would generate cost savings that would offset part of their salary? Like, how much do you think that would be realistically?
20%. Other communities may come up with higher numbers, but we've already been doing a lot of things like the lighting upgrades and the HVAC improvements. The low-hanging fruit we've already done.
Yeah.
And
Water, streetlights, right?
Exactly. I mean, the streetlights is probably one of the more exciting
That
ones.
was huge, right? We saved a
That
lot
was
of money.
huge. Our Matt Hopkins, who's not here, who's in charge of our buildings and ground, has just done a phenomenal job of finding energy savings. Phenomenal. Yeah, everything is LED, and it's funny, you don't even think about it. When I went to the men's room earlier, the light turned on, because right now the light's off if nobody's in there. And it's every day we're trying to save money. This room drives certain people nuts. If it's empty during the winter, it'll get colder. And during the summer, it'll get warmer, because we don't want to heat or cool this room if we don't have to. So we've really been energy efficient in town for a long time.
My last question on this item, is there an opportunity to contract for it, like on a temporary basis, to do specific work where we wouldn't have an ongoing?
There is. We actually right now have a relationship with an energy consultant that helps us when we do some of our utility and fuel procurement. In fact, we'll touch on utilities before I wrap up the day here today. I know I'm between lunch, but we have done that, and we could do that. The challenge would be is what this could really, that's hard to do with a consultant, is have that forward-facing public outreach piece.
Yeah.
Which is nice, right? But we need to save the money first, the outreach is second, so.
Yeah. One of the things that's not shown here that we've asked for about 5 years now is to do a staffing study for Public Works. Literally at least 5, if not 6 years, we've asked for a staffing study, and
Sounds familiar for the town.
yeah. I have no doubt, I know that Parks and Rec, through their master plan, did a level of staffing study. I have no doubt, I'm active in the Public Works Association in New England. I know what our staffing levels are compared to our comparable communities. We are running a very, very lean organization. And on this slide here, it talks a little bit about our plow routes and the length that our guys are going during a typical storm and what they're responsible for versus our neighboring communities. That's only a very small portion of the story. Every year, we take on more and more things within Public Works and within Highway Department. We've tried to increase our outreach. We tried to do things like get to the mailboxes quicker. And especially the last 2 years, we've not been even able to be at full strength. We've not been able to fill positions very quickly. And so adding a position at some point is going to be critical to us. Next one.
We do like a guest driver program. With the GPS system, you can monitor us now.
That's it. See how they're doing.
To that point, I'd say just to have an opportunity to get, I think we also have an incredibly engaged citizenry as far as how much gets done in this town. I always make a point of that by volunteers versus some of those other towns that may have higher compliments and the people are less engaged and less emotionally connected to their community. So a lot gets done here.
No, I agree completely, and like whenever we do a public meeting, Simsbury is a special place, but we want to keep the level of service. We don't match up with national standards when you look at Public Works in terms of our staffing. We exceed the local requirements in terms of other communities. We are a leader in Connecticut, but we're doing it by pushing our guys hard.
Yeah,
Kevin is not always popular. He pushes the guys hard. I push the guys hard. Tony pushes the guys hard.
I mean, to be fair, you guys do a phenomenal job. I mean, there's a difference in a snow event, in any event, that when you leave this town's borders, it's different. It's noticeable leaving and coming back every
Chief
single
Davis made a
time.
point of saying that.
And the reason for that is the guys have ownership. All of the crews have ownership. It is their run, it is their responsibility, and they're held to a high standard.
Tom Taberski's point with regards to Parks and Recreation staffing, it wasn't that long ago, there was 27 employees in Town Highway.
Yeah. It's a big difference.
Well, just a thought question is if we aren't able or decide as a board to support the service improvements, given the position asking for this year and potential 2 additional ones, would a staffing study, like we still haven't seen the results of the police study yet, so I don't know the efficiency of that. But I'm saying, would that be a way to at least prove the case for making these potentially next year?
Again, I think it's important. I've said it for a long time.
And what's the cost of like a 40,000?
I think we're 40 or 45,000.
That's what we did, or 70 was police, but.
We'll be half price.
'Cause it's not listed here, so it's.
I'd be interested to hear the Board of Finances. Just ironically, there's 2 people from the Board of Finance. Before we keep spending money on that, I'm in full support. I'm the one who held off, have this company conversation with Jen about the hiring before the study comes in. But is that something that the Board of Finance looks as a credible tool? Staffing studies to justify these asks or not?
So I don't have the expertise on that. You hear both things done well, they're very, very effective. Often they're an advocacy tools. I don't think Tom would do it that way. I don't think, know Tom for years. I don't think that's, I don't know. It would depend on it.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to do? There are industry standards out there, absolutely. And it can go to help us sort of structure and plan for when we could do it. Right now, we're entering a phase, I'm sure you'll walk you through the modeling, for the next few years are very, very tight. So until we get that smoothed out or get our grand list growing, it's going to just be a challenge. But to Tom's point, some of it's also a spend to save. When you think about the mechanic position, if you spend for this position, what do that save on their costs over time? So how do you evaluate? Those are the things, I can't speak for the whole board, but that's what I think about.
Of the board, but I think it's important for us as we think of these, should be doing studies like this if they're not a tool from which to enable the conversation to arm us with additional information to help us make the decisions as a collective group.
My understanding of the police staffing study was that was critical in part because that staffing that department is very complicated, and there's lots of complicated issues about calls and overtime and what is driving all that. I'm not sure if that, I'm sure Public Works, you have a number of issues and where you could be out working 24/7 too, but I'm not sure if those are equally do you have the same difficulty with staffing or figuring out optimal staffing between the two departments, or I don't know if the police department is unique in staffing challenges that maybe lent itself to doing a study?
I would say I think we're a little bit different, and I used to always joke with Nick's predecessor that we're both 24/7, but we're only 24/7 when you need us. We come in, any day throughout the year, whether it's a thunderstorm in the summer, all our guys are available and on call. During the winter, our guys can't take vacation. We have guys who want to go to Florida and go to Disney World during the winter, and we simply say, no, you need to be available. And part of where it would be interesting at some point is talking the staffing study would be, is that impacting our ability to keep and retain workforce? I mean, it is tough when we tell people during the winter months, you are not able to plan any vacation. You need to be able to come back because we can't be down positions during a storm because we're running tight.
I mean, sadly, the answer is yes, it is going to impact us from a workforce standpoint. Whether it has happened yet, it's going to happen at some point.
And it's also going to affect morale.
Yeah.
You were day today. I came in at 2:30 this morning. It doesn't cost you a penny. I'm on salary.
We appreciate your service.
So I think that it's just, I know you're going to keep, but I have people who comment to me about, well, in 2000, which wasn't too long ago, Simsbury looks to me the same. It's got the same number of schools, got the same number of roads, it's got whatever. They say, so how come you did with less then, or whatever it is? And the challenge is, so in every year, which is okay, I am not at all saying none of these conversations are valid or have strong justification to them. But each year, we add someone seemingly, and it's easy to add one person a year. But then across 20 years, we've added 200, right? No, and that's okay. But again, at some point, it just sort of gets, you look back and go, oh my gosh, look how much I've loaded for pension loss, look how much I've loaded for whatever it may be.
Chris, you're right, though, but remember, these guys are, I mean, between the two Toms department, we're down 11 people. So, I mean, that's the part that's not understood, right?
Sean, I'm in support of this.
Yeah.
Not saying eloquently or coherently, is that we have created our society is a more complex matrix. It's not Simsbury of 2000, they look the same number of schools, same streets, whichever. But as we continue to upscale, like you talked about, wasn't GPS. There wasn't a truck that had, it was a carburetor. Now it's a fuel injection and it's all microchip. And in 5 years, your truck's going to be It's going to be electric truck, most likely, that pickup truck, and it's going to have a whole. So it continues to scale up. But I think it helps the next board, and the next board, and the next board to understand, I think, personnel scope increase at some point. We should do, for every department, we should have an understanding of the expectation to continue to deliver the level of service like the police department is trying to do. What's the buy-in to maintain that service from a human element standpoint?
And I would say similar, to even what the police department's trying to do. We've exceeded our outreach over the last 10 years. We've become more engaged with the community for the very same reasons. The people who, yes, we may damage their mailbox, but we're providing them a service, and they have really responded well to our Facebook and our Twitter, which I'm delinquent on this year. We did the open house last year, and tremendous response, and everybody kind of says the same thing. They never knew, they never understood. We've done the the ride along with the truck, diminished since COVID. We really got to kind of get back to promoting it, and there again is a great example of one where it's that one more thing that between Kevin, myself, and our other staff, we have to take the effort to kind of promote that again. And those are the things that help us and help the community to understand how they're getting a value out of their tax dollar.
I'm not making this about you. I'm just making it about us collectively as an organization, how we solve this Rubik's Cube continuing every year of staffing.
Yeah, and I think to Kevin's point and Orlando's point, the number was higher at a certain point, but, and again, I think we all go for efficiency.
No, exactly.
Oh, I'm pretty good. Oh, we have one more that Amy and I will be talking later, but we did get our utility numbers in for gasoline, diesel, and heating oil, and they're actually better than what I had predicted. Just locked in yesterday. So we'll be hopefully revising some of those numbers and seeing if we can have any measurable saving associated with that.
And the question I asked earlier, if you can just get me what's the kilowatt charge?
Yep.
I'll give you the number on the usage.
Just one more thing so you
Yeah.
guys are aware of is the WPCA is going to be having a public hearing next month.
Okay.
Regarding increasing user fees.
What's it gonna go to?
We haven't increased user fees. This will be the second time in the 10 years I've been here.
Yeah.
We haven't increased them since 2019. We're looking at a 4% increase, which would be $15 per residential home.
So what's that go up to?
375.
375? Okay.
And,
More money, Tony.
for
How's that compare to everybody else?
a lot less. Avon, the minimum bill in Avon right now is $530. Canton is $460, and Granby is just over $400.
You think about what inflation's done over the last couple of years and how you kept the costs in check. I mean, it's,
Yeah, unfortunately, with the capital, with the lifespan of the plant is 20 years. We're reaching that 20-year lifespan right now, and the capital projects over the next 5 years would actually deplete our reserve fund down to just about $2 million if we stay on track without raising rates.
That was kind of what it was designed for, right? Because you knew this was coming, so that's,
Up and
yeah.
down, up and down. Yep.
Okay, you all set? Any more questions for Tom? Do we want to regroup at 1:20? Is that enough time for people?
Sure.
Sure.